Moving on, and North Korean state media says that Kim Jong Un is on a train to Russia to meet with Vladimir Putin. A U.S. diplomat said last week that the North is ready to supply ammunition to the Russians for their war in Ukraine. Well, let's get more now with our correspondent Florence Louis. She's in Seoul following this for us. Flo, it seems that Kim has left Pyongyang. Do we know exactly where he's headed? There's obviously been huge speculation that he's on his way to meet Putin.
Well, there's no official confirmation, from the South Korean side, but South Korean media are quoting unnamed sources from the South Korean government here that this train is headed for the border with Russia and likely to Vladivostok. Now, Vladivostok is about 1,000 kilometers from Pyongyang, and on a bullet train, this distance would be covered in just over 3 hours. But with North Korea's archaic railway system, this could be a journey of 20 hours, possibly even more. Now, Vladivostok, it's been speculated, could be the venue for this meeting. That's because Putin is scheduled to deliver a speech at the Eastern Economic Forum on Tuesday. Vladivostok is also the city where the two leaders, Kim and Putin, met in 2019. This was Kim's first visit to Russia after becoming leader of North Korea. Now, back then, when the two leaders met in 2019, there was this whole idea of projecting an image of friendship. This was after North Korean talks with the U.S. on nuclear disarmament had stalled. Now, any potential meeting between these two leaders, analysts say, is also intended to send a signal, a message, if you will. But this time, the message more specifically for the U.S. and its allies. I.e. to say, if you can supply your allies, Ukraine, for example, with weapons, if you can intensify military drills with partners South Korea and Japan, well, then we, Russia and North Korea, can do the same. And it also comes amid reports that these two leaders are potentially considering an arms deal. Take a look at this report.
This would be North Korean leader Kim Jong Un's first trip abroad since the COVID pandemic. He's likely headed to Russia's Far East, close to the North Korean border. News of his possible visit has reached residents in Vladivostok, where Kim met Russian President Vladimir Putin in 2019.
Both countries show teeth to the whole world and can stand for themselves, so there's something in common.
Putin is in Vladivostok to attend the Eastern Economic Forum, an event designed to promote foreign investment in Russia's Far East. When the two leaders met 4 years ago, Putin had offered to break the deadlock after North Korea's talks with the U.S. on nuclear disarmament failed. U.S. officials believe a meeting this time may include discussion of an arms deal.
If North Korea sells weapons to Moscow, this is going to be a problem for the United States as well as for Europe, because this would essentially try to be an effort by Moscow to balance some of the advantages that Ukraine has in terms of getting materiel, artillery, rockets.
North Korea is banned from exporting weapons under a UN Security Council resolution. There are also concerns North Korea may receive from the Russians sophisticated technology that could help it advance its nuclear weapons program. Russia and North Korea have drawn closer in recent months. In July, Sergei Shoigu visited Pyongyang, the first Russian defense minister to do so since the fall of the Soviet Union. Russia is also discussing holding joint military drills with North Korea. Analysts say the Kim-Putin meeting could be intended to send a message to the US and its allies.
With a bit of diplomacy, North Korea can be used as a tool to influence behavior of the United States, South Korea and some other players, largely in regard to the Ukrainian conflict.
For North Korea, a potential arms deal with Russia would also make sense economically. Heavy flooding has worsened the impoverished country's food supply.
Two countries led by authoritarian rulers and under Western sanctions may seem like natural allies. But closer ties between Russia and North Korea may also serve to widen the divide in the international community, much like during the Cold War era. Florence Louis, Al Jazeera, Seoul.
Well, let's now get the view from Russia and speak to Yulia Shapovalova for us in Moscow. Yulia, as we were hearing there's been plenty of talk of this meeting in Vladivostok on the sidelines of the economic forum that Putin is speaking at. What are you hearing from Moscow?
Well, for quite a long while, Moscow preferred to stay tight-lipped and didn't comment on the possible visit of Kim Jong Un, although many admitted that all the talks and rumors were not so groundless. President Kim is expected in the Far East in the coming days, according to the Russian media. And right now, there is no official information regarding his departure from the Russian side, as we understand. The local news outlets are cautiously citing South Korean sources. By the way, there were some witness reports recently alleging that some preparations at one of Vladivostok train stations were underway. But as we know, the city is hosting the Eastern Economic Forum right now, where President Putin is expected to speak tomorrow on Tuesday, September the 12th. And there is a lot of activity in Vladivostok, of course, right now, anywhere, as hundreds of thousands of people arriving and departing the city. And the meeting with Kim Jong Un is allegedly going to take place on Wednesday, the 13th. It will take Kim some time to get to Vladivostok on his armored train. Unofficially, both presidents won't meet during the forum, but straight after it. But of course, we're waiting for official confirmation.
Yulia, if an arms deal is indeed in the works, what does Russia want, and what might it be prepared to give in return?
So, as we understand, as many officials, well, not officials rather, but analysts say, Pyongyang can offer ammunition, multiple launch rocket systems and short-range ballistic missiles. And in return, Russia can offer grain, oil, part of its technology, or paying hard currency. As analysts here note, this may be agreed upon with China as well, because North Korea will act strictly according to agreements with China. That's what people here say. Moreover, it's believed that Korea can transfer Chinese weapons, because Korea has some Chinese weapons, or it can replace its own weapons with the Chinese ones. For example, give the Russians its own weapons produced over several decades and replenish the reserves with the Chinese ones. And it is important also for Vladimir Putin to demonstrate the nation that Russia is not in international isolation. Any international contact is important for Putin and for Russia. But this is a very, strange contact and a poor deal in the sense that the Russians understand that North Korea is a very slow developing country, and that Russia, by interacting with North Korea, puts itself on the same level with it. And the more the Kremlin publicizes this topic, the more people will realize that international level Russia now finds itself at.